Andrew, where are we going today?
Wow, welcome everybody. Small group. Wow, because I guess so the today Jim, Chip, Amy, and I don't know if Ben's here. Lee, Ron, the whole product team are have an offsite, right, Ben, so to speak, for lack of a better word, an offsite product meeting. So
Yeah, they're
they
traveling back today, I believe.
got it.
Hopefully they're
Exactly.
not flying from Washington,
Oh
D.C.
my God, that was
Yeah.
horrible. Horrible. Yeah, gosh.
What happened?
Um,
A
Passenger
helicopter,
plane hit a
military base helicopter ran into a passenger jet and they crashed into the Potomac and everyone died.
it was horrible. Um, okay. Um, so sorry, back on track.
Yes.
So we're uh getting so we don't have our team with us today, but we got a lot of good stuff to go over. So let's get right on into it, and I will share my screen. And Ben, even though we have a small group today, could I have you lead us off with wins of the week? And here we go. So
Woo!
what do we got out there? First of all, anybody have something top of mind they want to share? Corey, always good to see you as always. And anybody have something happen this week they want to go through? Um, I thought I saw Gary out there. Gary, you are here. How are you, bud?
I'm here.
Good.
I saw
Things
Tina raise
good.
her hand, by the way.
What Tina did?
Yep.
Awesome, Tina. What'd you got?
Something that came in this morning that I haven't seen before, which was exciting. Alert from SaaS Alerts. We're still not blocking anything from SaaS Alerts, we're just alerting. And also from Microsoft. And we have some clients that use personal VPNs. I'm going to ask you guys all what you're doing with that after I talk about this one. But it was attempts to sign in from Canada. And I was feeling pretty untouchable because we block all countries outside of Canada, and that keeps us pretty darn safe because all the attackers just seem to be using VPNs all over the country. So if something is compromised, we have been unfailingly blocked by conditional access policies. But this morning at 6 o'clock, we had some come in from Canada. So I feel like shit, here we go. Here we go. So 4 IP addresses, and they were coming from, let me just bring up all my notes that I've been digging into this morning. Um, Montreal and Toronto and Germany. And all of the IP addresses, all three of those IPs were flagged as threats for 2 to 4 high risk. And it looks like initially the password, it was a password compromise, and then it hit MFA. And this client has SMS text and phone call set up on their account, no app. We haven't pushed the app for everybody yet, but for the last 6 months, that's all we've been pushing for any new users. And so he got a bunch of phone calls this morning from Microsoft. And looking in the logs is kind of cool. I've never, ever seen the phone call approval attempt. And it's just like hammering it. Like every second, there's a bazillion phone call approval attempts.
So,
And
like, just the equivalent of an MFA bombing, but via phone call.
yeah, yeah, I've just never seen that one before. Anyway, they didn't get in. I didn't look at that when I contacted the client. I just saw, I thought he had a personal VPN on his computer. He's got kind of a work personal laptop that he uses. And we knew that he had a VPN on there. He's from the Netherlands, I think. So he uses the VPN to connect and watch Netherlands TV. I might have that wrong, but anyway, that's the gist of it. So I thought, oh, it's probably just him. Checked in with him and he said, no, I haven't used that for a while. So then I logged in and I saw all this. So 2 new things for us that I don't love, and that's VPN attempts from Canada and yeah, the phone call bombing that I've never seen before. I'm guessing it would have been, text or or app push normally, but to see this one where, you know, the attempt where the user's just going to pick up and say yes because they're just sick of the phone calls kind of thing. So anyway, we forced sign out, we reset passwords, did the whole shebang and set up the authenticator app, but that was just something new I wanted to bring up today.
Ew. But that's a huge win, Tina. Congrats. I mean, the fact that, you know, again, without, you know, a platform and, you know, the fact that you're on top of it, and thank goodness your clients that you've kind of put in a policy, hey, there's going to be some kind of multi-factor like that. That's a huge, good for you. That's fun.
Yeah, MFA is enabled on everybody and has been for years. But what I was going to ask you guys is, we don't allow any access from VPN IPs. The conversation has come up a lot when people have installed a personal VPN, and we're not using managed app policies at all of our clients yet. It's a pretty big ask. A lot of people still have their email added to the native mail app on Android and iPhone. I mean, eventually we're going to push for managed app for everybody because everybody's on business premium. But my question to everybody is, are you just flat out blocking this? Like, we had a lot of conversations because we found when we deployed the conditional access policies that are blocking and monitoring this with SaaS alerts, that there are a lot of people out there that have that personal VPN on there, and the security awareness training and all the material that we're providing to clients recommends that you use a VPN to encrypt that data. So I feel like I'm at a bit of a conflict right now with that situation, because I'm like, I don't even want to send you those security awareness training videos that tell you to use a VPN to protect yourself because I'm not allowing you in. Are people using corporate managed VPNs where they can permit an IP range where that's allowed, or are you just blocking it outright? Or are you just allowing it? Is my question.
Dude, it's a great question. And by the way, Andy, you go, but Corey, if I could maybe just turn to you real quick, you know, if you look at a lot of the, you know, let's just pull a NIST publication, Tina, pick one, right? And it's one of the 800s. You know, when you look at them, in my belief, you know, they'll still reference, right, a VPN architecture for you know, being for security. I just think they're quote unquote behind, right? I mean, that Corey, I mean, just at the end of the day, if you look at the 800 series and most of the architectures, is that a fair, just maybe a generic statement, you know, in terms of what we're seeing threat actor activity do?
Yeah. I mean, I talked about this the last one of how, in general, VPN solutions are becoming dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? Especially corporate-based VPN solutions. My company just released another article, another vulnerability today.
Yep.
Adversaries are attacking VPNs. So, you know, ZTNA is now coming to the forefront of this. But then here's the pickle. Now, a lot of people don't use VPNs the way we used it with a tunnel all type scenario. You know, and I get why individuals want to use VPNs, especially on their devices. Like, hey, I get on a Starbucks Wi-Fi. How am I encrypting my data? How am I keeping some, you know, the data I'm transmitting secure from some guy that's sitting here just sniffing everything that I'm doing? And it's a tough conversation.
Yeah. Corey, what I say is like, look, Tina, the last thing I'll say, and what I'm about to say, and Andy, apologize, I'll go to you in a second. If money were no object, there's a solution out there that I think leads by head and shoulders right now, and it's the only one actually in FedRAMP accepted, and it's AppGate. They do have an MSP offering. Again, I have 0.0 incentive to tell anybody this. I just want to be very transparent. I don't work for the company. I'm not paid by the company, anything like that. But I would highly encourage you guys to look at a solution like that, like Corey's suggesting is ETNA. They're, like I said, they're the only one that is used by like the DoD at large. And it's one that actually works exceedingly well. In fact, yeah, it's like almost batting 1,000%, 100% that when their ZTNA is in place, it hasn't been compromised. So anyway, Andy, your thoughts on?
I was just going to say, along the ZTNA line is a SASE solution where you're able then to monitor all that in real time. And I think that's where we are going, honestly, is that that your device will be at home, it'll be at a donut shop, wherever you're going to be, and it's always going to be encrypted and it's always going to be on, and we're going to know when things aren't right. And that's just the reality of it today, is that it is no longer adequate to have the endpoint separate from the secure connection and monitoring what's happening with the connection.
Yeah, and if you're going to look at it for the ZTNA, just make sure it has there's a called SPA, single packet authorization, Tina. That's the key buzzword. You know, if you start to go down that path and look at solutions that you want. So
Yeah, is everybody there? Like, are you guys all there with these
We're
small
using it.
business clients?
Dado has it. You know, there are other companies,
Yeah.
Timus, I like as well. It's priced.
Microsoft
Yeah.
also just came out with theirs, and that fits in nicely to conditional access policies, only allowing it if they're on the Microsoft, what do they call it?
you mean like an E5, Tina, or
No, like a ZTNA solution.
okay.
Microsoft just released it, or was talking about it. Maybe it's not released
Got
yet.
it. All right. Who else has got one? Gary, were you going to say something? Sorry, when we started? No. Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to kind of address something she said in the beginning.
Yeah, please, Corey.
This is something I've been talking to Leron about, that I'm hoping comes, you know, under the Kaseya regime and with advanced and SaaS alerts, is the ability for us to have some type of, say, machine learning integrated into SaaS alerts to be able to alert us first time this end user has ever connected to a VPN session ever, right? That it's able to collect that. It's not left field. I know the amount of time I've been talking to him about this. It is in a roadmap. I just don't know how soon the roadmap is, but I think for Tina, for you, I mean, that's going to be a big win for all of us, is the general alerting of, hey, you know, Zach has never connected to a VPN before. All of a sudden there's a VPN connection for the first time, and that would be an indicator. That would be an alert coming out of SaaS alerts to let us know, because it's tough. I mean, and I joked about it in the chat, but obviously when, you know, TikTok was banned for what, 8 hours, if that, you know, people were downloading VPN so they can connect over to the UK, so they can watch their TikToks and stuff like that, right? So we're going to see, you know, stuff like that happening. We're going to see more and more personal VPNs being established, and, you know, when your phone re-authenticates, it's going to pop up.
Good point. Really good point. All right. Anything else on wins? Ben, anything from your team?
Not really too much. Really the same old thing. It's the same token theft we've been catching for the past couple of weeks has not really slowed down. So
I think that's awesome that you're catching this stuff. It really transforms our ability to serve our customers. Thank you.
we caught 3 on them just on this call. So yeah, it's
Wow.
been
Really?
busy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So here's one that before Andy sent me an article, we're going to talk about in a second. But this is one I'm just going to open it up for conversation. Obviously this was a big story this week. I mean, you know, Monday, this announcement alone took something like what, $500 billion off of NVIDIA's market cap. You know, a lot happened in less than a week. The announcement of this solution, the fact that it was already compromised, the fact that it looks like it is stolen code from OpenAI. Any and all thoughts? Anybody have any feelings or
Think about how this can be used against us. First off, it's called distilled learning, right? And they're going to be able to apply this against us more and more from a security perspective. And now people's chats are exposed. I wasn't even aware that had happened yet. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like not that this is earth shattering, but I think certainly the security awareness here for your clients is hey, if you're one of these people that's curious and starts messing around with DeepSeek, you know, let's make sure we have guardrails around what in the heck you are, you know, having DeepSeek have access to. I think that would be the most thing. Corey, you're chuckling a little. Any thoughts from you on this? You know, maybe just because obviously you have the, you know, the defense, DoD background on, and do you have any thoughts on this whole
Um,
DeepSeek?
just trying to figure out how to say this without putting myself under scrutiny. I don't trust tools like this from other countries that we're not 100% allies. There's a reason why I never in my career would ever have used Kaspersky. And maybe it's because I wear a tinfoil hat, right? I'll admit that. But I would never use any type of AI-based solution like this that comes out of China. Just not what I would do in this scenario. We're not the best of friends.
Yeah, well said. I mean, and the fact that it's free is a little bit unnerving. Like, you know, just and by the way, in less than a week, you know, their entire, you know, their database was compromised. So
And
like,
I mean, I use the heck out of ChatGPT. I call it Nova. I even had it rename itself to Nova when I talked to it, right? Awesome. But I have a firm understanding that anything that I put into a solution like that, I will go with the level of expectation that it will be leaked at some form or factor.
right,
So
right.
if you see my ChatGPT, you're going to find out what stocking stuffers that I wanted to get for my family. I'm fine with that. You'll even see it helping me with PowerShell stuff, but you'll see I don't put accurate API client secrets and client IDs in there. If I'm having it help me create a thing, put some fake stuff in there. Put a bunch of zeros. So again, if it is leaked, your name's going to be
Right.
associated with it. Don't put anything sensitive into these tools.
Yeah. I think that's a good moral of the story. Anyone else? This strike anybody else this week? Obviously pretty big news story. So
I mean, it did coincide a little bit with the American adoption of Red Note as a TikTok alternative. So I don't know how coincidental that may be, but a lot of users of TikTok that were feeling the pinch about it being removed started using Red Note, which is a totally owned by the Chinese government social media platform.
Interesting.
I wanted to just do more digging into the actual technology because the adoption rate was so fast. I thought the timing was pretty interesting after, announcements about our investments in AI and, is what really is behind the technology, and the impact on our stock market was pretty scary to me. So
Yeah, wasn't that Ann?
a lot at stake here.
Yeah. That alone caught my eye. Like the fact that, I mean, if you think about just that alone, right, as a threat, right? The fact that they could literally, you know, take half a $500 billion off of a company's market cap in literally minutes of the market opening. That's profound, right? So Andy, what you got?
I just wanted to say, as it relates to AI, I think this is a great article to send to our customers talking about really establishing a business policy around not experimenting on company-owned devices, and know that anything you do can and will be ultimately exposed because they're all vulnerable at this point. Nothing is safe.
Yeah.
So I think that's the takeaway from this is, hey, do this on your own systems, not on business systems. Do this on your own time, not on business time. And if you're going to do something like this, there have to be guardrails in place, which don't exist in most small, mid-sized businesses.
Very true. Put the article in there for y'all to take a look at, Andy, and send to some of your clients that you think might be a little more experimental. Speaking of, by the way, I think this week we also saw confirmed it was don't hold me to the number, Andy, but I think thinking of you in healthcare, that there is a confirmed, was it 180 million records confirmed from the Change Health the UNH healthcare breach. So
I think that's nothing compared to the Department of Treasury. Ultimately, that will be exposed, right?
yeah,
Nothing sensitive there.
Oh, you mean the whole
Yeah.
the most recent one that we
Right.
saw? Okay. All right, Andy, this was pretty cool. When I say cool, and Tina, please, you said not to call any, but please feel free to chime in here. But Andy, like maybe just start us off here. This was really fascinating. That not in the sense that we haven't heard about SIM swapping before from threat actors, but can you kind of take us through? And I'll put the URL. Take us through more so that the from the carrier perspective of like
Yeah.
their agreements and their
Right.
hands-off approach.
Right. So what came up for me is I saw this guy talking about num locking your phone so that your phone number couldn't be moved to another device. And I went, well, shit, that would expose me. Excuse me. That would expose me and my customers to potential real issues. And what was discussed in this particular YouTube was the fact that when we sign an agreement with a carrier, we sign the right to sue them for damages. We go into arbitration, and the only thing they're ultimately responsible for is their cost of service delivery. They don't have to pay to restore. But if you think about people who use this to receive texts either from the bank or from any of their other pieces, if a number gets moved, then your host. And so I began to say, well, and not everyone uses a tier one provider. Tier one providers tend to have more security precautions in place, but it could take a rogue employee could say, hey, I'm moving your number to another device, right? That would be one example. And then you lose access to all your texts and MFA and all that starts to go there if it's SMS based. So the first thing is changing your MFA to a application-based MFA versus an SMS. First thing. Second thing is the tier one provider. I work with AT&T. I called in and I said, tell me about how I'm protected from someone doing a a num transfer. I said, well, first off, we can't bring up any accounts unless you're calling in. The second thing is you have to provide a PIN code in order to access it. I said, well, I didn't provide a PIN code, but I'm talking to you right now. He says, that's because we authenticated your device with a text to you and you responded. So if someone takes a device or is on a plan where the company ownership is on the same plan, once they validate, they have complete options to move numbers from one device to another. As long as they're not deleting the account, they can do anything with it. So that really concerned me. I said, so you mean if I just call in and I happen to I've taken Andy's phone and I'm calling in as Andy Rowe and I haven't let it lock, I can begin to do a num lock transfer? Absolutely, that can happen at that point. So having an additional leverage on this, Verizon may be different. I talked with another person who uses Verizon. They do an MFA after the PIN. But the point being that I had said no one can change the device and the number unless they show an ID and they're in person. So I wanted to make sure that that could happen. So what's happening overall is we're all using our phones for our multi-factor authentication. Our customers are using this for multi-factor authentication. And a lot of customers might have employees or others on their plan that have full right to make changes, and they haven't protected themselves that way. And again, the carrier is only responsible for the carrier service, not the security of your device. How's that for an overview?
Yeah, that was really good summation of it. Tina, love for your thoughts on this. You mentioned to me that you've been, and good for you, for a few years that and Tina, and lead us off, because in the device, holding my device, my understanding, you can go into settings and obviously, put certain, like there's an area where you can, literally, I forget what it's called, about, not allowing any SIM swapping. But go ahead, Tina.
I just wanted to look into it in Canada, see what it's like on our providers here, because I think it's a little different. But Andy, this is something when I saw it, when it came up, I looked into, because I can't remember what flagged it years and years ago. It was quite a few years ago this came up. And I instantly called TELUS because of that reason that you just mentioned, like, hey, we, before apps, when it was just SMS text as the recommended method, it was a huge concern as we're responsible for a lot of client logins, right? So I called TELUS at that time, which is our provider, one of our providers, and And yes, it was something that you had to specifically request. It wasn't put in place by default for all end users. You have to call in and ask for it. And there's two different things. And one is porting the number, and the other is the SIM swap, right? So porting the number would be to transfer your number to another service provider. And then the SIM swap would be transferring your account to a new SIM card. And they said similar to what you said here in Canada. And I thought at first in the chat with him last night that it was done by default. And I thought, okay, Canada's ahead of the game, or our provider is at least. But then by the end of the conversation, I realized, no, you actually do have to call in to turn on that port lock. So that your number can't be ported away. And then I talked about the authentication methods to do that. And exactly like you said, same for us in Canada, you need a PIN. So I had to provide my PIN first before he would even talk about my account. And then he confirmed what you confirmed, that if anybody were to try to port that number away, then you would get a text message. So hopefully your account isn't already compromised somehow, but a text message or a phone call is required for them to port that away. And then the thing that you brought up, I was still curious about, would be the corrupt employees of the provider. So like if somebody within TELUS, an employee was being bribed, $20,000 or whatever came up in your video, that they permitted to do that? But my understanding was that they actually, to be able to do it internally, they have to actually enter your PIN, I think. But let me know if that's what you found out on your side too.
Either we have to provide a PIN or they send you a text with the PIN. And if they have access or control of your device, then you can provide that text answer, and then you have full access, except for deleting the account. You can do whatever you want at that point. And it doesn't have to be the owner's business or a key employee's cell phone, because my perception is some businesses have all these on one account. And I am trying to say that the key employees need to be separated from the general staff, because employees are known to be rogue sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't look into that because we don't have that set
Yeah,
up.
it's similar, Andy, almost like your, for your finance people and changing an ACH, right? You want to those key people that have,
Isolated.
yeah, okay.
So you're
Good.
thinking insider threat in the company that
In
you're
multiple
supporting as
places.
an MSP. I'm thinking insider threat of TELUS, the
Both.
ISP. An employee, one of their employees is bribed.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Yeah.
both, Tina.
Both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it could be an employee of a customer of ours that's doing this to their customer,
Yeah.
to our customer, right?
That's crazy.
Corey, do you have
Interesting,
any
they
thoughts
won't.
on this? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say interesting that they won't let you cancel account because they care about their
Right.
revenue, but they don't care at all about your security. And I think a lot of folks, too, a corrupt insider at the organization could say, "Oh, I need to tell me the PIN," and act like they need it to do the work, so they could easily get the PIN. Some folks will say, "Never ever give out this PIN when you get the message. No one will ever ask for it," like IRS, etc. But a lot of people don't know that and will just gladly hand it over to the person thinking that they need it when they're not going to use it for good
And you could be
purposes.
socially engineered here, and that's what I'm hearing you say. And absolutely, that could be the case, especially for a high value net worth individual. You think about it.
Yep.
Why we're talking to Ann.
Yeah.
Was Corey going to say something?
He just dropped off.
Oh, he did. Okay.
I think though that we need to tell all of our clients to at least at a minimum put that port lock in place, because you need to call or make them aware of it.
And Tina, do you mean the one where you go in like an iPhone, you go settings and cellular PIN lock? Is that the one you mean, for example, or different?
No, TELUS said you need to call in to TELUS to put that port lock in place. So it's not
okay.
on your device, it's something on your account.
Okay, that it can't be ported or swapped.
Because I don't have, in TELUS's situation, I don't have access to do that myself. I was reading comments about this. A lot of companies, or maybe there's a company out there that makes it so that their employees, the provider, the phone provider, can't even do the port lock. You have to do it yourself, or to port the number is not even allowed. Only the end user has access to do that. So I would have to sign into my account and do it, or unlock it to allow it. I think that's the best solution for sure, instead of giving the power to the phone company that has waived all responsibility.
Yeah, very cool. Other things, anyone other comments, concerns on this thing? Ben, you put a few things in chat. Did you just, anything you wanted to share?
No, not really. Just a couple of links that are older, but still very effective. It's a matter of social engineering the company.
Got it. Got it. All right. So some other things I wanted to share this week. I thought were relevant. And the reason I thought this was relevant is Microsoft came out with their earnings this week. Majority of us, let's say the majority of MSPs rely on, I shouldn't say rely. Microsoft is a very critical part of our ecosystem. Is that a fair way to put it? That allow us to be in business, right? I thought this was interesting that, not that this is like, oh yeah, no kidding, Andrew, cloud's important to Microsoft, but the fact that it now represents, we're talking, from on-prem to, in a very, really relatively short period is, let's call it 60% of their revenue. That happened fairly quickly for when you think about it in terms of one, depending on the week, right? One of the three largest capitalization organizations in the world. And again, I simply wanted to share this with us all about, where are we thinking about our revenue, right? And how we as MSPs, continue to evolve. So I just also wanted to show you the breakdown, and where the growth was, and certainly it's interesting that the one highlight that I put down here was I thought it was really interesting that LinkedIn, surpassed what was it, like 2 billion in revenue. And that's not even, in their main, right, their main numbers here, but not surprisingly, that, Azure was their leader, and then kind of these two with the Dynamics products and M365 being the other big large percentages. So anyway, any thoughts on that, and how you're thinking about Microsoft Cloud, AI, and Copilot? Anything strike you all on
That
how?
we have shared responsibility in Microsoft making 31%, and that we're responsible for identity management, and yet we're being holding the bag when it comes to our cell phone providers. I'm just trying to say this is kind of working out nicely for the big corporations, isn't it?
Yeah, they're doing pretty well, Andy. They
Yeah.
are doing, pretty well. But anyway, interesting in nonetheless of, because you know, I think, and maybe I'll just get your thoughts. You have incredible knowledge and education and background. Like, do you think about, your go-to-market at all when you think about how relevant, how important Microsoft is and where they're heading as a corporation uh, in
Uh,
your overall strategy?
yeah, the thing that jumped out to me on this chart is the big difference between, look at consumer, very small growth there versus
Mm-hmm.
commercial. There's a very big gap. And I'd love to see the numbers broken out, enterprise versus small business on here as
But
well. But I mean, we definitely like Microsoft just core to everything we do.
yeah, well, I think here's my just off the cuff response to that, Ann. First off, forget consumer. Think about MSP. Like when I first got into this business 25 years ago, like Microsoft was at every event, and they had like, and they would have, I don't know, so that I'm in 25, 26 years now, but they would have like monthly meetups for, again, we were VARs and system integrators back then,
Yeah.
or pre-MSP. And now, like this year, I finally heard from a Microsoft representative saying, "Hey, we'd like to come to Write a Boom. We're really, getting, trying thinking about MSPs." The point is if consumer is not even on a blip, we're not a blip even relative to enterprise and large corporate. One person you know, and you rarely see Microsoft right at the events. You know, the only event I've really seen them show up in mass is PAX 8, their event, and that's because PAX 8's also their largest, if the term's still correct, LAR. I forget what it stands for, but they're large. PAX 8's arguably the largest reseller in the world of M365 and those related things into the channel now, with close to 40,000 MSPs under them. But anyway, nonetheless, really good point about the disparity. But yeah, Microsoft does not really think too, and this is Andrew's words, think too highly of consumer and SMB. It's all about the enterprise to them.
I think SMB is important to them, but it is interesting. They don't have to, you know, a lot of other vendors have to show up and make a presence, and
Yeah.
we have to buy their stuff anyway. So
yeah, important in the sense of they'll focus on, like I said, they'll focus on a PAX 8. They're not going to focus on
yeah.
They're gonna, whereas you go to an event, and you know the sponsors are like, oh, Ann, we want to talk to you. Microsoft doesn't care
They don't have to.
about you. Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
Right. So interesting, nonetheless. Okay. One of the this was one that this continues. Again, this is more so for awareness. Again, we've talked about this a few times now in the last. This was one I got. And just again for everybody to be aware of the iMessages and texts for education of your clients. Again, they're using this familiarity, right? You get a doctor's appointment. How many of you like, you know, just yes or no? Like, I know for me, like whether it's your doctor's appointment, an open table reservation, right? Think about it. They were just mirroring behavior that we've become used to, and therefore, you know, it's obviously successful because they continue to do it. But
I got this very same message, as a matter of fact.
you did, David?
Yep, via text, sure did.
Yeah, right. But you know, you and most of us on this call are cognizant, right? But you know, the one article, David, I think that you said is your first one, but the previous week we had one where so by replying yes, what it did was by default, if I don't have you as a contact, David, there's these for lack of a better word, anti-phishing, you're not recognized, right? So but when you say yes, in essence, you're becoming a trusted contact. And then this whole charade plays out. So it's just interesting how the threat actors are using this.
Well, and you know, we have a fast pass. It's not called fast track. It's a fast pass toll here in Georgia.
Yep, we do in Tampa too, Florida.
Yeah. And so I didn't obviously click the link, but I did actually go to my fast pass to see. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense because it actually made me look, but not to check the box, so to speak.
Right. Okay. Anybody else dealing with these or? Okay. So this one, did anybody make the cyber call this week by chance?
I'm sorry, Andrew. I'd love
That's
to.
okay. Oh, Tina did. Okay, so Tina's a little iterative, but what I thought was really interesting about this, I thought this was again important for everybody, because this one, you know, I send out my weekly newsletter to everybody. Hey, this is what we're going to be talking about on the cyber call today. And lo and behold, an MSP that I've known for a good 20 years reaches out to me. He's like, hey, Andrew, we just had a client deal with this like firsthand. And so here's the ruse of what's happening. So first off, again, take your typical user, right? And they get a teams to teams conversation, right? You're uneducated, right, type of user. More than likely, Gary, let me just ask you, your generic user is going to go, okay, well, hey, maybe it's, Gary's on the help, Gary's teams, shoot me a Teams message on help desk. They're here to help me. Fair, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. So here's literally what happened is, and this is a mature MSP, 60 employees, been in business a long time. They start seeing just mass amounts of spam coming into one of their customers. And so they even, they recognize it, and they reach out to the customer and like, hey, we're seeing that, you guys are getting absolutely bombarded, with emails. And they're like, yeah. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to look into this. So Gary, check this out. You'll be the client and I'm you, Gary. So between that phone call to you, hey, Gary, we're looking into this. And within minutes, they talked about, I'll use product names because they used it on the cyber call. They said all of a sudden Huntress fires that there was an installation of, I think it was AnyDesk onto the endpoint. So they're like, what in the heck's going on? Call back the client. They're like, hey, we noticed that, you just had something installed on your device. And they're like, well, yeah, your help desk, they reached out to me and they're helping me get rid of the spam. Literally, Gary, within minutes so this is going on. Fortunately, in this situation, there was a good ending. The Huntress immediately isolated the host. It couldn't go any further. But I wanted to share this with you all because, my suspicion was even before sending the email out saying, this is what we're going to talk about on the cyber call, and getting the MSP back who came on is like, hey, we just dealt with this, is that I think this is going to be this is something I want you all to be aware of for yourselves, to know and educate your clients and have protocols in place, because this is one that is very easy to do. It is the number one way, and I probably said this before, but setting up Teams environments is the number one. Black Hills, the John Strand team, the number one way they are social engineering their way into environments right now. So this is something that I think is going to be coming our way. Like I said, I already saw it. So any thoughts on this? Has anybody dealt with this in particular? And if not, Tina, any thoughts on that cyber call as you heard from that MSP? Did anything kind of settle in with you and how you might approach clients about this?
I was in Mexico, my feet on the beach, and I had to call in because I was really interested in hearing what they had to say, because I just met with one of my nonprofits and had a serious chat about team security, and they feel strongly about managing some of that infrastructure themselves, removing access, creating teams and things like that. So we just had a discussion about this and talked about whether they want to allow external access. I recommend it's blocked, and you have to whitelist the domains that you communicate with, period. So we had a heavy discussion about that, and then this came up. So I almost wanted to send it to them and get them to come too. But
they're always welcome. They're always welcome. But
are they okay? And you and clients?
Anyway, it's on YouTube. But isn't, just real quick interruption there, Tina, and continue the arrow I have here. Now this is CSO, magazine, again, that is more enterprise focused, but look what they call out. They call out, the fact that, it makes sense, right? If you're a threat actor and you, like, more than likely, if you're let's take a number. If you're sub 500 employees, there's a very good chance that you're working with an MSP, either in a co-managed or direct or fully managed state these days. So that is why I'm calling this out and kind of ringing the bell to you all now to say, please, get some kind of policy in place, work with your clients on this. This is coming your way. And like I said, I'm concerned about this one because, like I said, when I saw when Todd, the MSP, said, look, within literally the time they hung up their phone and minutes later, AnyDesk was installed. That's moving in terms of, a threat actor. We've had two in the past. Oh, you did. Andrew said that. Is that Andrew said that. Which Andrew?
Me. Um, the first one was a bit interesting, except for it wasn't a vishing one. They used it's a client that is not
Yes.
really paid attention to kind of any cybersecurity that we tried to put out for them. So they're really not on much platforms. But that one came with they got hit with a bunch of spam. They got enrolled in, I don't know, a bunch of newsletters, and within like the first like 12 hours they had received like 250,000 emails. So we were trying to clean that up, but at the same time we're looking at other things that they were possibly doing, and come to find out it was one of their VPNs that they had no MFA on, and they're trying to mask what they were doing, and they ended up getting some data out. I'm not part of the IR on that. I kind of washed my hands on it, but the next one that came through was, I think 2 weeks ago. I happened to be out, and it was another client, similar thing where they have their own IT and they kind of don't really want to listen to everything we want to put out there for security. They don't join any security awareness or anything of that sort. And same thing, they ended up getting hit with a bunch of emails, but then the threat actors ended up calling them, posing as their bank, and he happened to provide them all their bank details. And this was right before, what was it? What was the holiday that just came up where the banks were closed on Monday?
Okay.
Yeah. That's what happened. So he was in a full panic trying to figure out how he's going to get a hold of the bank. It's a smaller bank. They're closed on the weekends. They have no IR or anything of that sort to where they can call in on a 24-hour. Luckily, he ended up getting a hold of them right before like the wire transfers happen. But instead of having two different separate banks set up, he's got his company and his personal all in the same. So he basically just gave them access to their whole bank account and was trying to wire out all the money. So I would say if there's email spam coming in, it's also most likely something else is going on in the background that you're not paying attention to.
Yeah.
So
Really appreciate sharing that, Andrew. That was awesome. Thank you. Not awesome it happened. Awesome. For
yeah.
The other thing, again, this comes down to, I want to point out again, about application waitlisting, blacklisting. Like again, if you're not using, this is a common one. I want to show you the common ones they're using. If you're not using Quick Assist, maybe, again, this is again, their bread and butter, living off the land, right? Things that aren't going to fire the EDR. So if you're like, hey, we never use Microsoft Quick Assist, well, blacklist it, shut it down. If you never use any desk, shut them down. So really important to go through the common remote control tools that their threat actors are using as backdoors. Whether and or see it, and awesome seeing you. And or set up some honeypots in the environment as well for triggers. So, okay. Any other thoughts, comments on this fun one that is going on? Yes, living off the land. And again, you're seeing there, Tina, interestingly, you mentioned, Netherlands, et cetera. But again, this was the last piece of the article I just wanted to share. Again, they're just using common tools to as best they can stay under the radar. All right. And then the other thing you're really starting to notice, I think we've talked about this before, not that an endpoint compromise can't happen and won't happen. It's just the fact that, again, you talk to a good pen testing firm these days, and they're like, look, the EDR tools are pretty darn good these days. We're going to go a different direction to get in. Why get caught trying to go in and have something fire and alert the security team when I'm going to go in and completely in a mechanism where I'm gonna, be obfuscating, any of the alerting controls. So, okay. Ben, talk about that real quick about writing a PowerShell.
Oh yeah, I would just. I mean, a lot of the RMMs. I think we used to use Ninja, but you can write a PowerShell just detects a particular process being started. And I was just joking and said, just make one that if it detects it, it shuts the machine down, or
Great.
maybe one that just runs and disables the NIC, so
Yeah.
something they can't recover from. And that's something super fast, because you're right. There's really no reason for them to be running any sort of remote control software.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Good idea, Ben. Okay. Let's close out with this one. This was like, this one I wanted. Let me just see if is this the one? Bear with me 1 second. We talked about did we talk about the one with Chip? No, we did. Is this it? Did we talk about the one? I don't know if this was did I tell you about the one with the cheat code repository? And does that ring a bell to you guys a little bit about how AI is targeting victims? Did no, yes?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, so here it is here, Ben. So we've heard about AI. Yeah, this is the one. So I didn't share this with you. So again, so we've heard about AI and how, hey, it's helping the attackers, with their grammar, right? That's certainly helped them quite a bit. And how it can help defenders. Well, here's one that's really interesting. They're using AI almost like, how we talk about having an ideal customer profile, your ICP. So think about this. If you're a gamer in this instance, and I don't know, Ben, I'm going to ask you, I've never been a gamer. Is anybody a gamer out there?
Maybe.
Huh?
I am.
Okay, perfect then. So there are these cheat repositories out there that help you get better and get higher. Okay. So what they did was, Ben, let's just say they have your email, and they're going to target people that have signed up for games and things like that based on, a credential dump and, obviously again, access brokers. So they know Ben Jones is a gamer. So they target a specific phishing email at you and saying, hey, look, here's, the best cheat code repository for XYZ game. And lo and behold, they stuff it with a bunch of malware. So I again, just thought it was more just interesting in how the use of AI is not just about, hey, I'm going to write a better email, but I'm going to use it to now segment my targets and really, go after and entice that target on something they really care about. What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I mean, they've been doing that for quite a while, even with uh, if you've ever torrented any sort of movie that people will hide instead of a movie, you end up downloading an executable with a virus on it. I've heard people of getting infected from downloading. I think when I guess Napster was a thing, or LimeWire, they'd be like, "I'm going to download this latest album," and it's just packed with malware. But like I did we did office hours, and I talked about N8N, and it's a workflow automation that can use a chat GPT API, so you can automate the entire process, so you can be very hands off with a lot of these things.
So it's really to me, it was fascinating, Ben, the level of, like I said, targeting. I thought it was,
Well,
wow.
yeah, and it's so cheap to write software that uses like a chat GPT API, or if you decide not to host your own uh, uh, GPT engine, that
Mhm.
it's like it literally costs. I think it's like for an inquiry, it costs like 0.00 like 7 cents or something like that. It's something very cheap, so you can hit a lot of people with some very legit sounding emails for next to nothing.
Wow. Yeah, I agree, Anthony. All
Yeah,
right.
that's
What was that one, Anthony, that you shared there in closing?
Well, that's what Ben was talking about, our Tuesday deep dive
Oh,
office
okay.
hours. And in like 10 minutes, Ben took something from scratch and made a complete workflow. He knew where he was going, of course, but it blew my brain away how quickly and easily, knowing just a little bit about the APIs, he was able to string these containers together and get some very valid results.
Yeah, we wrote a quick little workflow automation that a customer of yours could use to submit their email address and tell them, you know, I'm going on vacation, and it temporarily set our whitelist for that account in our system. So it's something that people always struggle with of you know, someone saying, "Oh, I'm going on vacation," and you have to go in there and you have to make a change. But APIs make it a lot easier.
Well, let's call it a wrap. Thank you everybody for your contributions. Andy, Tina, Andrew, Gary, always awesome seeing you. Great to see everybody out there. And David, welcome for the first time. The crew will be back next week, and wishing you all a fantastic one. We'll see you either on the Cyber Call Monday or back here Thursday. And be safe, everybody. Take care.
Have a good week.
Thanks.
See you guys.